Mortgage contingency. Sounds fancy. What's mortgage contingency?
Well, I mean, if you're not a cash buyer and you're buying a home using a mortgage, your offer is
All right, we have FAQ for real estate terms, right?
Yes.
Frequently asked question real estate terms. So I'm going to give you a layup. What is an appraisal guarantee?
an appraisal guarantee. So when you purchase a home, the home is listed at, say, $250,000.
Yep.
And that is what the listing agent expects that the market will support for that home, right? So your bank's going to send out an appraiser. The appraiser is going to look over the comparable sales and they're going to say, yes, this home is worth $250,000.
Right.
However, in a market like this where there are bidding wars, the prices will likely exceed that $250,000 mark. And the seller's going to be looking for an offer that can guarantee the appraisal. So if you offer $275,000, an appraisal guarantee would be you coming to the table in the event the appraisal came in at $250,000 with that $25,000 gap.
Yeah, and so what kind of ranges of appraisal guarantees can you see? So is it just the difference between list price and offer price, or what kind of variations can you see in the guarantees?
I think there's almost unlimited options. You can guarantee a little, you can guarantee a lot. Sometimes a lender can issue an appraisal waiver and there is no appraisal. So there's many options, and a good real estate agent can help you structure the one that's going to help you win the deal and the one that's financially right for you.
So if I heard you right, you could offer an appraisal guarantee for $1,000, or you can offer an appraisal guarantee for all of it.
Yes.
Right? So
Yep.
You offer, in your scenario, $275,000, it comes in at $175,000. If I gave an appraisal guarantee for all of it, I'm coming to the table with that $100,000.
That's right.
Right. So there's a lot of different nuances to it. Talk with your realtor about what's best for you, given your financial situation, making an offer. Okay. EMD. We are an industry of acronyms,
Yes.
right? So what does EMD stand for?
Earnest money deposit. So that's your skin in the game as a buyer in the transaction. When you get an offer accepted by a seller, you have 48 hours to submit your earnest money deposit, which is held in escrow during the course of the transaction. When you make it to closing, it's applied towards your total due on closing day. And if you exit the contract for any of the contingencies contained within it, you get the earnest money deposit back.
When both parties sign.
When both parties sign.
Yeah. Which is more often than not.
Yeah.
Right. And if they don't, then you have to sue them together, which isn't fun. Rarely happens, but it does happen. And so, as an example, I give an earnest money deposit down of $20,000, right? And I need to come to closing with $50,000. What I'm hearing from you is that $20,000 applies towards the $50,000, so now I only need to bring $30,000.
Correct.
Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct.
Okay, great. All right. Post-close occupancy. What does that mean?
Post-close occupancy. So again, sometimes a seller cannot immediately move out of the home after they close on the sale. And there is a period of time built into the contract where the seller essentially becomes a renter in their own home, right? The buyer closes. Now the buyer is the owner of the house and the seller is essentially staying on in the property for 30 days or 60 days, however long was agreed to, and they're a tenant. And they could be paying a daily fee for that extra time in the home. They could have received that for free, depending on what was negotiated. Again, a good real estate agent can help you structure that term to your benefit.
So post-close occupancy on a surface level is just that the seller gets to stay beyond close on the pre-agreed to time based on the agreement.
Correct.
Right? All the terms within that occupancy is negotiable.
Correct.
Right? Including the length.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So sometimes they're paying, sometimes they're not. Sometimes there's damage deposits, sometimes there aren't.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's for a week, sometimes it's for 60 days. Right. So there's a lot of variation within that post-close occupancy. But on its surface, it's just the seller gets to stay beyond close for whatever the contract says.
Correct.
Right. Perfect.
Yep.
All right. So mortgage contingency. What is mortgage? Sounds fancy. What's mortgage contingency?
Well, I mean, if you're not a cash buyer and you're buying a home using a mortgage, your offer is, generally speaking, contingent upon your ability to obtain a mortgage. If, for example, you had a mortgage contingency that allowed for you to have 30 days to get the clear to close, for the lender to approve you, and then, I don't know, on day 28, you lose your job and you can no longer obtain this mortgage, then that mortgage contingency protected your earnest money deposit, right? And you get that back, right?
Yeah.
So it's probably the longest running contingency that I see in most contracts. It'll usually stretch to about, 3 or 4 days before the scheduled closing date or the proposed closing date.
And I know your background's in mortgage, right? Before, in your former life, you were a high-level processor and ran a big mortgage branch. So have you ever had the experience on here's another term, verification of employment? Have you ever had a verification of an employment and they said, actually,
yeah.
You ever had that experience?
I've definitely had that experience where I guess what you don't know is that right before you close, the lender checks to make sure you still have your job. And a lot of people well, not a lot of people, but some people don't
Some
have their
people don't.
job anymore, or they thought that they got all their paperwork turned in and that this little detail would go unnoticed if they're going to switch positions or change companies. And you need a job at closing, and it needs to be the same job that you applied for the mortgage with.
Yeah.
Right. On top of that, things can happen. We've heard the horror stories of someone going out and buying a car or a whole house full of furniture, new appliances, and something that's going to open new credit that's otherwise, going to shake up that mortgage approval as well. So that's why you have a mortgage contingency, so you can be protected.
I had this crazy experience. I think it was my first year in real estate, first or second. Lender calls the HR department. HR department says, actually, we're about to let her go. She doesn't know yet. Right. So I was like, oh, she gets denied her mortgage and fired or let go. I was like, oh, that's going to be a bad week. Oh, that's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Right. And thank God for the mortgage contingency. Because what if she does get let go, can't afford the house, right? So because she had a mortgage contingency, I mean, depending if she could still afford it anyways, even though she didn't have her job, that would stink. But at the same time, like for people who couldn't, it protected her.
Yeah.
Right. So
100%.
All right. So if you have any other questions, go ahead and reach out. Appreciate it. Thank you.